Hey, so check this out. I found this cool little toggle button down here on this crypto wallet design from Pedro Tribizon. I think that's how you pronounce it. But you know what I thought? I can make that. Boom. And it's a cool little toggle button. Do you know what? Why don't we make it together? Let's go do this. So what we'll do is we'll just take a copy of this. We'll paste it. Now we can start working on the pieces. And what we're going to start off with is make an ellipse. We'll just draw out the knob for it. Go 56. Yeah, that's good. That's for the knob. The color for it. Then we're going to grab the slot behind it. And it's got these rounded edges, which we can just, here, if we say that the height is 32, so we know that we got to put those at 16, that's half of those. So that'll round it off for us. Then we're going to take that color inside, that one right there. Now looking back at our reference image, I can see that I believe there was another image that showed this one, and it actually had this filled with when it's actually on. Right now this is toggled off, or it could be on, off, I don't know. But it would be kind of cool that when you did press the button, the knob slid over, and then the background here went from a black to this orange here. So let's do that. And then the only other thing we're going to need in here is, well, a couple things that we need to get still is there is actually a shadow. It's kind of faint, but it's a shadow. And what we can just do is we can just take a duplicate of this right here. And I'm just going to turn this all black. And then I'm going to add an effect. The effect is going to be a layer blur. Now if I make this one, like, make it bigger, then I'm gonna change the blur to something like, let's see if we just start moving this up. Yeah, something around here. 31, that looks good. So that's another element. I'm gonna move this over a little bit. So I'm gonna focus in on this. Now see, on this knob, there's a highlight and there's a shadow. So let's do that with our knob as well. And we're going to do that with an effect. So it's not a drop shadow, it's an inner shadow. Now see, we've already got it started here, but it's actually on the wrong side. We want to put that shadow on the bottom. That's this right here. So if we change this something like -4, that's going to, do we need to bring the blur down? How does that look? Yeah, about like right there. That's 3, looks good. And we'll do the same thing. We will add another one. We're going to change this to inner shadow. Now that one went to the top, but this time, instead of it being dark, we're going to change this to a white. And we're going to change our blur. Something like that. It looks good. Okay, so there we have our knob and our shadow, and then our slot, and then the part that we'll use as a background underneath when it gets turned on. So what we can do is, let me rename this. This is knob. So if I take all 4 of these now, export those 4 layers, and we're going to put that in our assets folder. And now let's head on over to Godot. All right, so what I've got here is I've got a root control node that takes up the entire space. This is just simply for a demo example tutorial. So I got all 3 of those here in one. It's a demo of an example of a tutorial. And inside here, we got a color rect, right? And that I just put as like some dark offset color. And then inside here is just a panel. Now, all of this is just to set it up, because in your project, you're going to have this done differently. Hopefully you put it with some actual functionality into a real live button. But for right now, what we just want to do is just kind of show you how to build it, right? I'll put a little functionality into it, but let's go. First thing we're going to need, now we've got our panel here, is we're going to need to create the button itself. And this thing is actually called a check button. Okay. So, but what we're trying to make out of this check button is actually a toggle. So I'm just going to put it down here now. Not for now, just this is where it's going to live, right here. It's not going anywhere else. What we got to do first, this thing, is we got to change the layout size. Okay, so for the images that I've created, just for this example, we're talking about 96:34 for the Y. So now that we've created the button itself, what we need to do is we need to add the 9 patch rect, this guy, okay? And this thing, if we fill it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to replace this texture here with the slot base that we created. And then we're going to rename this to slot base. And then we're going to duplicate this. And this is going to be our slot on. Okay. We'll rename this one. Now we need to create another 9 patch. I'm going to go ahead and take this. We're going to change its visibility at this point. Self-modulate. I want to change that. I'm going to take the alpha down, because we don't need to see that right yet. Because right now we're building an off button, and we'll address that later on when we turn it back on. Do the animation for it. But for now, we just need it to have that off. So for this 9 patch, what we're going to do is we're going to create the knob for it. So if we take that knob, drop it right into there. Now we're going to rename this to knob. We're going to change the layout. It's to min. For this particular project, it's 56. We're going to adjust the pivot offset. And so what we're going to do for that is we're going to take our 56. We're going to divide that by 2. And what we're trying to do, that's 28. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to put that pivot offset right into the center. It just makes it easier when we're moving things around. Then we're going to set the position itself like 56. You see it's a little low, so let's take that about a -10. That's going to put it right where it needs to be on the off. Let's duplicate this knob, because now we need to rename this. This is going to be our knob shadow. Let's take that knob shadow, put it right there. And oh man, That thing it doesn't look good at all. That looks like a really weird button. That's okay, we're gonna take care of that right here. We're gonna take its minimum size to 83. Because that's the size that we made of this in Figma. Now we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna take this, let's actually reset this right now. We're gonna take our 83 for our pivot and divide that by 2. It's a 41, so we'll put that for 41. So that gives us the center of that image. So what that allows us to do is to set this now, do the same thing. It's about 43 minus 18 on this guy. Now, when we take that, we can move this knob shadow underneath, and look at that. Wow, that is amazing, right? Now we've got shadow on here, and we're ready to rock. Now let's get some functionality going with this button. We're going to do this by first creating an animation layer. So let's do that. We're going to create our first animation and leave it toggle on. Now here we're going to set our duration 5. Zoom in a little bit on that. And half a second is actually a pretty good time duration. Now for the knob, we're going to select the 9 rect over here. We're going to select our position, the keyframe for the position. Since we're at 0, we're going to create that. And we're also going to do the same thing for the shadow. Create that keyframe. Okay, so now we're going to move to our final place. So that was the starting point. And then our final place for the knob, the position, is going to be current value. We're going to take away 74 pixels. Now, I've already done the math on these to know exactly where it needs to go. And you're going to need to adjust that for your own button. And now that we have it here, don't forget to click the keyframe. Now knob shadow, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go down to its position. We can just take its value, and I know that 74 is the amount that we need to reduce this by. I'm going to do subtract 74, and I'm going to hit a keyframe. So now, you can see this moving. Hey, it looks good. Okay, so what we need to do is let's do some adjustment in here on these keyframes. We're going to change, I've selected them both. Click and drag on both. And I'm going to take the easing, and I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to set this to ease out. It's going to create that ease out curve. So it's going to start going faster, 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 and then slow down toward the end. And I'm going to do the same thing with the last keyframes. Select them, right click, but this time I'm going to do ease in. Now, back to the beginning, take our slot on. We're going to come down here to the modulate. Because remember, we have this, right now it's currently off. And what we need to do is when we hit the button to toggle it on, we want this background to go from this dark color. We want it to light it up to that same orange color. So we are going to change its self-modulation. We're going to go ahead and click on keyframe. Got to set that because this is what we're at 0. We're going to go all the way to the end. We're going to turn self-modulation. We're going to set this to 255. And keyframe. Now, I've noticed, see how it goes right here. So you see how it's the beginning. That'll work, but look at the very beginning. It just kind of the whole thing turns on too fast. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this keyframe here, and I'm going to change this to start at a 0.15. That way, when we play it, it has a little bit of a delay before it actually turns that to orange. I change this to ease out, and this, right click and do an ease in. All right, there we go. So that's the toggle on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click animation, duplicate. We're going to call this toggle off. We need to change a couple things here. We're going to go down to the interpolation. And we're going to change these modes to cubic. It's just going to give it a smoother animation. It's actually going to be pretty small right now, but it'll look better later on. Okay, now that we have created our toggle on, we need to take these. We need to move these. We're going to swap them with the ending ones. Let's see, we're going to put those here. There, this thing is going to go to the end. And the only thing that's different here is this is going to go, click on that one. This is that 0.15 again. This will make it so that when it turns back off, that orange glow doesn't go away until the button is already past this early point. We'll stay on for a little bit. So that's it for the animations. What we're going to do now is we're going to add an animation tree. This. And what we're going to need to do first is we're going to need to change this tree root up here to, because we're going to create this animation node state machine. We're going to click on that. For the animation player, we're going to make sure we assign current animation player. And then if we right click in here, we can add animation, toggle off, do another one, add animation, toggle on. And now we're going to need to connect these two nodes using this, I think it's an airplane connector. All right, first we're going to go start, and then we're going to click on that one, and click on it again and put it back to here. That'll bring it over to there. Now, if we click on each one of these, what we're going to do is we're going to change out this X fade time. 0.2. We're not going to make it as instantaneous. It's just instantly teleporting to the next thing. We're going to give it a little bit of a delay. Change that. And we need to change our advanced mode from auto back to enabled, because we're not dealing with any of the conditions. And as you can see here, the auto, it uses the transition if the advanced condition and the advanced expression checks are true, if they're assigned. We're not even assigning them. So for our case, we're just going to stick with enabled. We're going to do the same thing with this other travel line here. We go back to advanced. We're going to put enabled. And then the last thing we need to do is if we click on the animation tree again, we can click on active. Okay, folks, somehow I have done these backwards. What we're going to need to do is if we click on toggle on, it turns it off. And when we click on toggle off, it turns it on. So let's do this. First, we have to uncheck the active. We're going to go back to the animation player. What it is when these are off, it does the opposite of what I needed it to do. So we're just going to switch these real quick. I'm going to take these, bring these right here, those two guys, bring them back. I'm going to do this pretty fast. Okay, when we toggle it on now, it should go on. So if we go back to our animation tree, turn it on to active, and we toggle it on, it'll go on. Toggle it off, it'll go off. Do you guys catch that early on when we were making this? No one told me? All right. So now that we've done that, we're going to start wiring this up. So let's call this toggle tree. We can get rid of all this for now. So now that we have a script attached to here, we'll come back to our check button, name this toggle button. We'll go to our node, and when we toggle, we're going to wire it up to be in here. Now, in order to travel from one state to the next in the code, you need to reference the playback parameter from the animation tree. What we're going to do is we're just going to right click on this and copy the property path. And since the script itself is attached to the animation tree, we can just reference self. On ready, call this animation tree and equal self. Because we are referencing the script that is attached to the node itself. If the button is pressed, in order to get the parameter, this is an indexed array, and so that's how we have to access it in its different states, and that's why we're using this reference back here to self. Animation tree, and since it's an array, we're going to paste that playback that we had. We're going to say to start, we toggle else. We're going to do the same thing, and this time we're going to go travel. We're going to say toggle. Let's give this a try. See that? Working. Now we got a couple things we need to clean up. First of all, what we need to do is, right now it's active. Let's turn that off. See what happens. Oh, sad, it doesn't work. What we need to do is up here, in our ready, is we need to set the active equal true. We have an issue down here. I selected this as a start, but we actually don't want to do that. Because what that's doing is it's automatically starting the process and it toggles it from on to off. So what we're going to do is just select that one. We're going to remove that. When we play it now, it starts off. And when we click on it, it goes on. Now the one last thing is this checkbox has this focus. Let's fix that. We're going to do that. I'm going to fix that in the toggle button itself. And so what we'll do is we'll come down here to the theme override, your styles, focus. We're going to change that to a new style box empty. Because now we've saved it as an empty. When we play it, and we make this a little bigger so we can see better, when we click on it, there we go. Now, the last little thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and add a script to the root. And what we're going to do in here, we're going to need a new label. In the script, we need a reference to the label as well as this animation tree. No magic going on here. So in our script, what we need to do in the toggle tree is we need to say when this button happens, signal toggled on, signal toggled. So then, when we hit the button and we toggle it on, we will emit a signal called toggled on. We'll do the same thing for the toggled off. Use that to toggle off. Now that will send the signal to whoever is listening. In our case, we need our root script to be the one that's listening. And it's going to listen in its ready function. Animation tree, hold on, connect, and we're going to connect it to toggled on. Call this one off. It's yelling at us. It's very angry right now because we haven't declared these functions yet. So just so I get them right, a func on toggled on. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to make its label text equal magic here now. And we're going to do the same thing. This one here and say toggled off. No magic here. Sad. Right? I mean, it'd be sad if there was no magic there. Let's give it a try. No magic. No magic here now, sad. There's no magic there. Okay, and so you probably picked up on this, but we have to fix this one here to say off. Otherwise, it's going to be sad the whole time. Not work right, so let's give that a try. A little bigger for us. And magic here now. No magic here, sad. There's one thing I missed. Two things actually. The first thing is what I'd like to do here at the ready is we're just going to set the text to be the same thing at the when there's no toggle. So no magic here now, sad. We had used what was currently in the default when we built the label, but it's better if we just script it out. And the second thing, we'll play that and I'll show you the second thing we're going to do. I thought we'd just add a little bit of touch here. So it says no magic here now, sad. Magic here now. See this delay? When you click the button, the delay between when it actually, the text will change, but then the delay of the button itself. What we're going to do is we're going to fix that real quick by adding a wait, get tree. We're going to create a timer. Give it like about a 0.35 time, and then we're going to have a timeout. And so we can actually put that down here for this one as well. When we play it now, the text changes right before the color changes of the state of the button. It's subtle, but I think it's really helpful. And there we go. Well, thank you very much. You know, if you've made it all the way through here, I really appreciate it. So what you can do for me is you can hit that like button and, you know, the subscribe button too if you're not already a subscriber, which, I mean, there's already a ton, but, you know, I can always use more. And make sure you hit that notification bell too, because, you know, you don't want to miss out on the next amazing adventure that I'm going to throw out here. Which leads me to, you know, my next thing, which is if you know of another amazing adventure you'd like to see happen, let's do it. Hit me up in the comments below. Tell me what I did wrong here, what you'd like to see better, what you'd like to see next. All right, take care.